Hello there, my name is Gord Kubinek. I will be your host for today's Canadian Association for the Club of Rome presentation. Our speaker today is Walter Knitl. You can read on the screen a little bit about him. I wanted to tell you some other interesting things because I had a little chat with Walter before, because I had not met him before. In his past life, Walter worked for Nortel, like so many other good folks here in Ottawa. And when he had to move on, he asked himself, where will my skills meet the needs of the world? What's happening out there that is of interest that, can work for me? And he discovered the realm of digital transformation, governments, and he threw words at me, which I don't understand, something about digital transformation caused by human cyberspace convergence. For those of you who don't know what that is, you have come to the right place, because I don't know. And after chatting with him, I said, I'm actually interested in this. And just to understand Walter a little bit, he's doing this because he thinks it really matters for your and my future, and if done properly, can very much help us on our transformations towards a sustainable future. Little details about the format. We have approximately 45 minutes of presentation by Walter, plus or minus, then approximately 45 minutes of question and answers. I will be telling you when it's your turn to ask the questions. Make sure you post your questions in the chat, and please make sure they're questions. And I will then say it is your turn, and I will also tell whoever is on deck, and that it will come at the after Walter's presentation. So just enter it in the chat, and I will keep track of all of that for you. Without further ado, here's Walter. Good luck. All the best.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here to talk about my favorite subject, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence combined with it. So my talk today is going to be roughly this order. I will parse the title, sustainability, what does it mean? Digital transformation a bit, parse what IoT means by an overview, and just a bit of an overview of AI. And then the meat of the presentation is going to be about applications of IoT and AI to sustainability. And then I'll top it off with cautioning about some risks that come with IoT and AI. Okay, so in terms of sustainability, today we live in a limited globe, the Earth, with several spheres: geosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, atmosphere, you name it. All together, they combine to create an ecosphere that we live in. And when we came on board as humans 100, 200,000 years ago, we were able to ecologically live within that ecosphere. But over time, we got intelligent, we got smart, we created things and technologies, and all of those things started to encroach onto the ecosphere, and it keeps on encroaching. And that thing collectively, the technologies, the innovations, we call the technosphere. And so the objective of sustainability, in my view, is to maintain a fixed, sustainable balance between the technosphere and our very limited fixed ecosphere, the Earth. And the reason why we are where we are in terms of an issue with our technosphere is because we got here through a linear economy. Basically, we take things out of the ecosphere, make things, or we take raw materials from the ecosphere, make things, use them, and then discard them back into the ecosphere without regard of what it does to it. But there's a new paradigm coming on board called the circular economy, which attempts to keep the technosphere, materials and energies, recirculating within the technosphere, and only take some things, minimal amount, from the ecosphere. And when we have to return things back into the ecosphere, we try to keep it as clean as possible. So this is a new circular economy that's coming about, which will help to maintain sustainability. Now, in terms of the technosphere, when it really consists of two things: the physical world and spaces around us, of course, the things that we make, human-made, and now increasingly the digital world or cyberspace. But we are now also experiencing the convergence of the physical and the digital through a process called physical digitalization. And this physical digitalization is evolving the relationship that humans have between the physical and cyberspace and each other. So let's just take a quick look of how we got here and what does it all mean and how do we define IoT in that context. So again, we've always lived in the physical world. We interacted with dumb things, dumb objects, dumb spaces. And the only interactions we ever had were intelligent interactions we ever had were with humans. And so we developed governance for human to human interaction, and we developed governance for human to physical interactions. So we have these interrelationships between humans and physical things, but it has been a dumb thing. We can't talk to our physical devices. They don't talk back to us. Our spaces are dumb. We have to manipulate it physically. There's no intelligence around it. However, that has started to change over the last 150 years through a convergence of two technology paths. One is the communications, and the other one is the computing. And at one point, they were coupled together, literally and figuratively, in a single technology or paradigm. And over time, it evolved. We got better at the technology, the computing, and communications converged. And this convergence we are calling cyberspace. And when we talk about cyberspace, we are most likely talking about the internet. We as humans interact with the internet through our devices, but the internet also has a whole bunch of other things attached to it. So cloud services, logistics and commerce, social media, entertainment, you name it, all kinds of different services. But also there's private internets or private enterprises which may or may not be connected to the big internet. So this collection of computing and connectivity, communication, is the cyberspace. And so now we as humans, we have a relationship with cyberspace, and we have started to, better or worse degree, develop some governance around this relationship between cyberspace and humans. And when we talk about digital transformation, we're really talking about this part, but the question is that all there is to digital transformation? Now, I already mentioned that the physical world is undergoing digitalization, and what that means is that a whole variety of different devices are becoming intelligent. They have embedded computing, and they too connect to the internet, and they too connect to cloud services and service providers and commerce and logistics operators like Amazon. And they do also connect to private enterprises, again, which may or may not be connected to the internet. And that, of course, is cyberspace as well, connected computing. So the question is, before I continue, the physical things now have a relationship with cyberspace. Okay, and the physical things are now intelligent. They have computing. They are autonomous, and they do interact with cyberspace entities like other intelligent things, like other applications or cloud services. So there's this new relationship between the physical and the cyberspace. So the question is, do we have two different cyberspaces? Well, no, the answer is clearly no, because there's a single cyberspace which services humans and services the digital physical things. It's one big unified digital realm, while at the same time, we still have the physicality of humans with the physical things. You can still interact with them physically through speech, through voice, and so on. So what does that do to our previously separated, siloed relationships? Well, they're no longer separated, right? They're all merging into a single unified realm where there's interrelationships between all three entities: cyberspace, physical things, and humans. And so the Internet of Things is really this relationship here, the cyberspace and physical things. So let's do a bit of a 101 on the Internet of Things by looking at an example. So here's an architectural view of an example. You have things on the right side, the devices, which are intelligent. You have the internet in the middle, so you have Internet of Things, and connecting them together are a bunch of different connection technologies like cellular, 5G or Wi-Fi, Zigbee. There's wired connection like power over Ethernet, and all kinds of different technologies. And then on the other side, on the left, we have cloud services where the data is stored, managed, analyzed, and basically value is created out of those things. And if you look at it from a 30,000 foot level or 40,000, whatever number you want to use, you basically have physical devices on the left, network in the middle, and some analytics and data management on the left. Okay, so let's do another example, Internet 1.02. A smaller example, something like a smart home. Again, you have devices, the things that are connected over some network, in this case, Zigbee or some other local network. You have compute or control functions like a smart thermostat or your smartphone that provide the data management analytics and create the value out of all that. Here again, if you look at it, you have physical devices, you have network in the middle, and you have analytics and data management on the left. So, we could go on and on. You can do Internet 1.03, another example, Internet 1.04, another example, as many examples as you want. But bottom line is they roughly have this kind of an architecture, which, at even a higher level, Internet of Things consists of things and devices, connectivity, and data analytics and control. Now, is that what Internet of Things is? Well, it's part of the Internet of Things space. It's just one dimension, right? It's the architecture dimension, and the architecture can be reused in the other two dimensions, the other dimension being the verticals, where the solutions are and where the value actually created. And by that, we mean things like smart building, autonomous vehicles, industrial, precision agriculture, and many others. And then to enable the creation of all of these, the architecture and the verticals, there are a number of enabling disciplines, but also a number of impacted disciplines or in domains. Things like hardware and software innovation, new business and commerce models, security and privacy issues, legal, socioeconomic imperatives, and things like that. So this, in my view, is the entire IoT space. You have to really think 3D when you're talking about IoT. You can't just focus on one dimension. So bottom line is, a thing has a persona, a dual persona. It has a digital persona and a physical persona. On one side, it looks to the physical world where it interacts with other physical things and humans through physical means, through physical forces, audio, visual. And then on the other side, interacts digitally with digital entities, like applications, like humans on the other side of that cyberspace that have their devices that interact with that digital physical persona. So here are just a few examples of devices. I'm not going to go through that. You can peruse that in the final video. But again, it's just a sampling. There's thousands and thousands and millions of different types of devices. Okay, so that's a quick broad brush overview of IoT. And now even a quicker, broader overview of artificial intelligence before we talk about applications is here. So artificial intelligence is a very broad term. It's really a system that mimics human abilities, but it relies on technologies like machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI that takes in data and trains on it to create a model of what the data represents. And behind that is what's called deep learning. It's really another subset, even a deeper, more detailed technology that consists of multi-layer neural networks that learns from that data. And the way that it roughly works, well, generally works, is that the data coming into an AI system that consists of some kind of a neural network architecture and algorithms, it approximates what that data represents, but it's compared against what the valued output we are expecting. Is it a cat? Is it a horse? Is it a car? Is it somebody doing something? And through it, and that difference is fed back into the architecture, and the whole model is actually adjusted and changed to then create another output, and that's recursively. It's a recursive process, which then, over time, with more data, and with more training, it can now easily and realistically say what that data represents based on what our original expectation was from it. Now, we know that AI is being used everywhere, right? You saw ChatGPT. It's a text based, uses text for its training and output. However, where does it sit in with the overall IoT model that I just created? Well, really, it sits everywhere, right? Certainly in the data analytics, it analyzes the data from the things out there, and also lives in the connectivity section. AI is used to monitor network performance, reroute traffic, learn from traffic and faults to better optimize the network. And then things themselves are also starting to get AI capability due to increased microelectronics capability and performance. So AI is really everywhere within the IoT model. And it's everywhere to the extent that people realize that you really can't do justice to IoT without using AI. So there's this new term that sprung up called AIoT. AI plus IoT, AIoT. And it's a combination of AI plus IoT. All right, so what does it all mean? We saw the things, the digital physical personas, they're intelligent, they have AI capability. So it's all around us, basically. And so we are immersed in all of this. And now, instead of just having humans as the intelligent entities with which we interact, we have this intelligent network of smart things, and that's creating ambient intelligence. And so it now starts to become very interesting in terms of what it does to our relationship with our previously inanimate world, which is now animated, basically smart things. And now we can have intelligent interactions with our environment, and not just with the people that we relate to. And so with this, this ambient intelligence and AI and IoT, it has found a lot of application in different areas, including SDGs. And this is actually a fairly old chart, about 4 or 5 years old. I think it's still relevant. And it highlights some of the areas where AI and IoT apply. And now I will just go through some of these, because there's a whole wide range of use cases of how AI and IoT apply to sustainability. Okay, so one area of application is precision agriculture. And precision agriculture is a scheme where you apply nutrients and resources to your animals or plants only to the extent that's needed at the right time, in the right place. So the individual plant, instead of spraying entire fields and hope that you influence the growth and the yield of plants. And so AI and IoT are used for sensing the environment, the soil, the temperature and moisture of the soil. It's used for sensing the biometrics and motion and location of animals and plants. And generally used for automation for equipment, robotics in agriculture, and of course, building automation like in the farms. And very much so, AI is used in planning and predicting operations so you can optimize your farming operations as best as you can. The result is that you don't use as many nutrients and materials, so you have much reduced water utilization, fertilizer, insecticide. As a result, there's less environmental contamination, and as a result, reduced greenhouse gases because you don't have to make so much fertilizer, which is very energy intensive. You can optimize the use of your farm equipment where you apply nutrients only to certain areas and plants and not the whole field. So all of this also generates higher yields, which means less land and less environmental destruction because you don't need as much to feed a fixed population. Now, it's a different story if the population is continually increasing, which is another issue that we all have. Okay, so here's an example of one example of robotic farming. I'll just do a few seconds of that. Oops, let me just. Picture, a lot of the technology there that helps to solve a number of issues like farmer attrition, yield, and so on. Next application of AIoT, so smart homes and buildings. Again, no surprise, AIoT is used for sensing temperature levels, light levels, and humidity in buildings, occupant motion and location. It's used in heating, ventilation, and AC application, lighting, and space scheduling and space optimization. For example, in a new modern office, not everybody has a seat. It's basically roaming, and so you use IoT to sense occupancy of desks or offices and notify people where they can sit, for example. And it's extensively used in planning and predictive operation. Again, here you're seeing as a result the impact, reduced energy consumption, because you're only using energy as needed, where needed in the building or home. That clearly results in reduced greenhouse emissions. Another area of AIoT application is in transit and transportation. Here you're looking at sensing traffic through embedded sensors, either in the road or on poles. You're also extensively using machine vision, which is part of the whole IoT space. You're using it for traffic control, light signals, DSRC, which is dedicated short-range communication, which is now becoming the thing in automated vehicles and autonomous vehicles. And you can use AI and IoT in vehicle electrification, sending power where charging is needed, scheduling people to use the charging, and so on. Again, no surprise, reduce fuel consumption, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, there's other benefits, which are reduced operating costs, reduced collisions, and reduced rider and pedestrian industry, but they're not really sustainability related per se. Another big area of AI and IoT application is in logistics, kind of in the core of the networks and distribution networks in automated freight. Here you're using IoT in payload sensing, so you're sensing the temperature, vibration, motion, and moisture of the payload or the freight. You're automating loading and unloading and distribution, checkout, physical access control, and fleet monitoring, for example. That results, the impact is reduced energy consumption due to optimized transport and optimized handling. You are reducing perishable spoilage because you can keep track of it and perhaps reroute it to another place if it's taking long that can use that. That all, again, results in reduced greenhouse gases from, obviously, the reduced energy consumption and reduced perishable spoilage because you're not sending energy that was used to create that those perishables down the drain. It's actually used for good reason, and other benefits as well. Now that's on the distribution side, big network side. But there's also applications in logistics in the so-called last mile delivery. And here are just a couple of examples. You're using AI and IoT for drone augmented delivery. And what that means is that instead of doing a truck roll from one address to the next address to the next address, even if they're like on the same street, on the same block, you are parking the vehicle in the vicinity, in the neighborhood, and you're sending drones to deliver that package to the final destination. So you're very much reducing the truck stop and go, and therefore reducing the fuel consumption and reducing the wear and tear on that truck. And another example is sidewalk delivery robots. Similar kind of concept. You're sending delivery robots to deliver the goods, the package to that last leg of the journey from either a local enterprise that's providing the goods or from a locally parked truck to a number of destinations in the neighborhood. Here again, you're reducing fuel consumption because of the reduced usage by trucks, and also because the last leg can be electrified, like the drones and the delivery robots. Another big application of AIoT is smart grid. For monitoring and sensing the macro grid, the big networks, the hydros, the voltage and faults on the transmission lines, but also for microgrids, where you have localized networks based on renewables like solar or wind that service a particular area and don't necessarily connect to the big grid. Other applications include power consumption metering and something like called the producer-consumer coordination. And what that means is that you as an individual, you take power from the grid and you use it, but you may also have solar panels, or you may also have an electric vehicles, which you may want to feed back energy back into the grid. So you are producing energy as well. So it's called kind of prosumer paradigm. And so AIoT enables that coordination. And here again, really in most of these applications, you're looking at efficiencies, reduced energy, and therefore reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Another application of AI and IoT that's really coming on board now is for material collection, whether it's waste or recycling. And so now you're seeing things like smart bins where they sense the fill level of that recycling bin or that waste bin, and that information can be sent to and connected to a central location, which schedules trucks. And so instead of just sending out trucks every morning to collect up all the bins, etc., you are sending trucks to where they are needed, where the bins need to be emptied, and you need to deliver that recycling material or waste to a depot. And so that saves on energy consumption for the trucks. It also helps to reduce the materials going to waste. And it also helps an earlier material return into circulation, into that circular economy. As soon as you know it's available, instead of sitting there for 3 or 4 weeks, in some cases, it's going back into recirculation, and it's not being lost somewhere in a dump where it does not have connectivity or nobody knows about it. And here's just an example of some of the latest technology for robotic recycling.
Robots don't need lunch breaks, they don't call in sick, and they don't need to go on vacation, and they can work a double shift.
This one, made by Colorado-based AMP Robotics, uses machine vision and a vacuum grabber to pick out what it can. And according to CEO Matanya Horowitz, the lease costs roughly the same as 1 or 2 workers' annual salary.
We identify hundreds of different sort of specific types of things, but we're always teaching it new things.
And as the AI learns at this company lab how to tell pieces of plastic from sheets of paper, it also learns how to grab them.
In the future, it'll go for the flat spots and get better and better over time.
Would it be the case that if you smash this thing up a million different ways, it will eventually learn all million possibilities?
Well, even better, it learns to generalize. In addition to the million, it'll learn the 1,000,001 that it's never seen.
And the AI can learn the exact chemical composition of each item, allowing it to not only fingerprint which company it came from, but also sort the stuff so exactly recyclers can guarantee customers a purer form of recycled plastic or paper, not one that's mixed up with materials humans might miss.
When you total up the value of all the stuff that we put up.
Anyway, so you get the picture. This was not meant to be a commercial for AMP Robotics, but it's one of the examples of what's happening in the industry. There are other companies clearly in the same space and see application and, return on their investment from cities and jurisdictions that recycle.
In the garbage.
Okay, so another area of application for AIoT is in maintenance and repair. If you have good maintenance and repair, you can extend your equipment life and therefore use less energy in creating new equipment. You can make your operation more efficient and therefore reduce the energy usage and consequently reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this is done through sensing and tracking equipment usage and performance, telemetry, tracking equipment health, but also using something called digital twins for repair predictions and staying on top of maintenance. I'll let the next short video explain what that is, but in a nutshell, it collects data from the physical equipment into a model of that physical equipment. And so it augments that model with the real-time information happening in the field, and you can use it to simulate in parallel what potential faults might be, what the aging of that equipment is, so we can predict when is the right time to take it out of service, to do maintenance or repair on it before any actual faults happen. So anyway, here's a short video on that. Okay, so the last little message there is going to be used in different industries. So from smart buildings to agriculture to all kinds of industries, and it helps to optimize the equipment life and repair and maintenance. Okay, so we've seen a number of applications, a number of use cases for AIoT. There's another big concept around called Industry 4.0, and it's the next step after a series of industrial revolutions, which started with the steam power, then moved to electrification and computerization, and now it incorporates things like cyber-physical systems, which we don't have time to get into, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, autonomous robots. So the bottom line is, with all of this optimization and efficiency that comes from AI, Internet of Things, you are reducing the energy used for manufacturing and creating of products, and therefore reducing the greenhouse gas emissions as well. Now, another big concept under which a lot of these use cases fall is the smart city. The smart city is really a reaction to some of the history we've had in cities and the current state, where most of the global GDP is in the cities, most of the energy consumption is in the cities, most of the greenhouse gas emissions is in the cities. And with the rising population, unfortunately, it puts a lot of pressure on infrastructure, utilities, and all kinds of aspects of cities. And so this has generated this concept of smart city. At a very high level, the objective is to improve the quality of life from the smart interactions between its constituents, peoples, and organizations, the city's administration and operations, and of course, a smart physical environment using smart physical things. Things like, cameras and sensors and lights and traffic lights, fire hydrants, sewers, they're all being provided with some level of intelligence that can report their state, report their health, and do measurements, things like air quality, traffic levels, waste levels, people movement. Bottom line is that all of this smartness in the city, if you will, the smart physical environment, is resulting in reduced energy usage and waste and less greenhouse gas emissions and less pollution overall, other than just greenhouse gas emissions. All right, so we've seen a number of benefits from all of this, from AI and IoT, but with every transformation, you're always getting some risk. So what is the risk-benefit balance in all of this? So besides some obvious things like a lot of these devices operate on battery, and what do you do with the batteries? How do you dispose or recycle them after the battery is used up? That's an issue, but there's some higher level issues as well. Things like security impacts, imperatives. Don't forget that these things are really computers, right? And as computers, they can be hacked. And as computers, you can plant software on it, firmware on it, that can be used to attack other things, create botnets. So just very quickly, some of the potential impacts of IoT and AI are in smart buildings. If they get hacked, you have unauthorized entry, so theft, damage, and safety issues. In agriculture, food contamination or sabotage. In drone applications, you could have drug theft or medical supply theft if you redirect drones. Crash, injury, and death for vehicle malfunctions. If your smart car, I don't mean smart car like the old smart car, but the intelligent connected car gets hacked. And there's a whole bunch of other risks for smart city. Now, those are some tangible impacts. There are some even broader, higher level issues, questions around cyber autonomy, which is really a societal kind of issues. With all of this connectedness and devices monitoring us and us using devices, will there come a point where we will not be allowed to be disconnected? Right? What does that mean? What does it do to our privacy? What does it do to our mental health and anxiety? And then there's another impact, potentially. What does it do to our human agency with a lot of automation and a lot of intellectual and labor work going away? What does it do to our meaning of work? And is it potentially going to result in exclusion from society as well? So let me just illustrate this. For example, let's say that you have a resource, whether it's in the office or industry somewhere or on the farm, and that resource has increased its performance capacity over time and it's usable, but now it's, in this particular point in time, it's basically saturated. It's not moving very well. And then another resource comes along that's just recent and is rising in performance exponentially. What are you going to do? At what point in time are you going to discard beta in favor of alpha, right? And so it could be a piece of machinery, it could be whatever. But in fact, it's happening to us, right? That beta is our brain, which has evolved over time and it has gained in performance, intellectual performance, but our brain is not incrementally, exponentially growing in capacity. In fact, it's shrinking over time, but it's not growing in intellectual capacity. Whereas AI, as we've experienced recently, is now starting to exponentially rise. And so what is that crossover point? What does it mean for our society and our human agency? So where the heck are we heading with all of this anyway? Well, you can define human agency in a number of different ways. I think for me, a human agency is all about having certain relationship, using our intellect to create things, to do things, and also work with our hands, our labor. That brings meaning to us as well. So where are we heading? What is the trajectory we are on? Well, let's take a quick look. Back at the start of last century, most people got their agency from labor, from using their hands. Of course, there were people that used their intellect, and that was all good. However, over time, we've seen automation, and some of that labor disappeared. A lot of that labor disappeared, but there were people that were able to move into more intellectual work. In fact, back in the 60s or 70s, Warren Bennis, who was an organizational consultant, said there will be, in the factories of the future, there will be only two employees, right? And there will be a man and a dog. And the man will be there to feed the dog, and the dog will be there to keep the man from touching the equipment. Okay, so we've gotten rid of labor, more or less. So now we're left with extract labor from labor, you're left with interrelationships and intellect. Okay, but we are experiencing new technologies, AI and machine learning, and that's also now impacting our intellect. And we're kind of in the same situation as the previous one. We have two employees, a man and a dog, or human and a dog. But now the dog is a cyber dog, and it's there to keep our hands off of the algorithm, so to speak. So we've taken away now intellect. So we've taken away all of this stuff. So we're left with relationships. And so the question is, with all of these good things that are happening, what does it mean to our relationships? How are we going to relate to each other and relate to this intelligence around us, the ambient intelligence, and what does it mean for society and how we're going to change and what the future holds for the evolution of humanity. Okay, so that's enough about AI and IoT. And if you want to learn more about these types of issues, we'll learn more about AIoT. You can go to a number of resources. There's the world full of them, but here are just a few. AIoT Canada, which I am part of as well, is a nonprofit organization building an IoT ecosystem and community in Canada. I host a podcast on the Internet of Things called ThingsHappen under the iotNorth banner. There is a conference coming up in November in Calgary, the iotNorth conference. We have a white paper along these lines imploring the government to take this IoT and AI more seriously and start producing some digital governance around it. And we do have a workshop on this as well. Okay, so in summary, we live in a fixed ecosphere, the Earth, right? We have one atmosphere, one hydrosphere, and so on. And so we must find a balance between this human-induced technosphere and the single fixed ecosphere, and to ensure that the ecosphere is self-sustaining and the technosphere is also self-sustaining, and there is a balance, give and take where needed if energy and matter has to flow between the two. It takes many things to achieve the sustainability around this. So, societal change, political will, individual efforts, but very much paradoxically, technology is also a major pillar, and Internet of Things and artificial intelligence are part of that, in addition to other technologies like materials technologies, chemistry, and so on. So my call to action to you is to go after our elected officials to make sure that we utilize AI and IoT technologies to the best effort we can to help with the climate plan and execution on that the government has pronounced. So that's it. I thank you for your attention and happy to discuss this further.
Thank you very much, Walter. And you're right on time. Very impressed. I didn't think you'd get through all those slides, to tell the truth. And I said, whoa. And now I have a bit of a clue, and I'm sure all people watching this have at least a tiny clue, which is great. So thank you very much. As the host, we have a tradition that the host gets to ask the first question.
Sure.
So here goes. I'm going to have two. One's a silly one and one's a serious one. So the silly one is just, to lighten up, give us a bit of a mental pause. There's a wonderful kids movie called WALL-E. I don't know if you know it, but it's about this robot that cleans up all the garbage of the Earth, which we destroyed, and the human race rockets into outer space, circling the solar system until the Earth becomes habitable because we basically destroyed it all. And the robot is WALL-E. Now, in that, there's basically AI and computers that do everything for people, and they become incredibly fat, lazy, and stupid. They are a pathetic bunch because the computer and the AI can do everything for them. So they become very passive, useless blobs. What can we do to avoid that? Because it's already happening. I'm a teacher, and kids now they just get some AI thing and it writes an essay for them. And they didn't learn very much when the AI wrote the essay for them. And this kind of stuff is seriously happening. So how do we prevent from being the stupid humans in WALL-E?
Well, that's the big $64,000 question, so to speak. For those that know the $64,000 notion. Yeah, that's a good question. You will hear out there a lot of people that are actually in this space, in AI in particular, right? Say, you got to put a stop to it. We have to do a pause. And I'm not so sure that that's necessarily the right answer. I think what we really need to do is accelerate the governance around it. Now that's easier said than done for sure, right? Governments are slow to react in most cases on technological transformations to come up with corresponding regulations around that, whether it's to develop regulations to advance its use or adoption, or regulations to minimize the risk. Right now, I think there's a huge disconnect between the pace of AI technology and IoT technology and the rate of governance innovation around that. And so it's a political issue, really, and a societal issue. It's not a technological issue. And the only thing I can think of is that we need to educate and we need to raise the alarms at a societal level to get our regulators to pay attention. I don't see any other way around it. Now, you could say, well, we'll try to stop it, but who are you going to tell to stop what? I don't know the answer to that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Losing you. You seem to have frozen. Art, is the image freezing, Art? I've just got a technical question. There you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you did freeze up, but carry on.
Okay, so we'll start with the questions now. I will tell who's on, and then I will also say who's on deck. So our first question is from Art Hunter, and on deck is Jean Doherty. When you ask the question, you can obviously, you need to put on your sound and your video so that we can see the questioner. No, we don't like anything anonymous around here. Okay, so I can see beautiful Art. Thank you for doing things properly, Art. And so shoot, and Jean Doherty is on deck.
Okay, my question, Walter, is really with regards to error management. As I understand the Internet of Things and AI, well, particularly AI, is based on pattern recognition and the ability to put patterns together, which makes it really, really quite magical in terms of particularly when you're chatting with it. But the algorithms are designed to look for patterns, and sometimes they find patterns which we don't see, which then leads to errors, or at least what we think are errors, and this starts giving the whole technology a bad name, in that it's unreliable and it fails often. But then you get down into the practical world, particularly, and I'm looking at autonomous driving, and some of the material I read, what's going on in Tesla labs, where they're trying to identify, I don't know, 1 million or so objects, and to make rules as to what to do when these things happen, and they need supercomputers that are looking at all this, and then they got to boil that all down and in some way make it available such that it's in each individual vehicle, because the database is just too big.
Right.
So my real question to you is, because of these issues, clearly there's got to be some way to manage them, particularly when we're looking at critical systems and command control of them. Because you might think you've got quite a reliable system, but as time goes on, the machine learning is still getting new data going in and new biases and what have you, and it could turn around and bite you later on. So this is really what I mean by error management.
Right.
How is all this contained now, and any plans for the future?
Well, that's it's a good question. I'm not sure I have a full answer for you, but certainly you've seen, with ChatGPT, right? For example, right? That it's kind of sprung up on us, right? And why has it sprung up on us? Because the data was collected into one place, right? And it was learned in this by ChatGPT, by this system, and has access to all the data. And you're right, not everybody's going to have that same collection of data, right?
Yeah.
And so right now you are, for that particular type of application, you're pretty well have to connect to and use that system to get answers to your questions. And so, in terms of autonomous vehicles, that's an issue because, as you mentioned, having all of the data needed for one car to be able to avoid all scenarios is difficult. However, I think over time, you will see technology marches on. You'll see more storage. You'll see better algorithms. You will see AI capability embedded in the car itself, in the end device, so they can react to the scenarios in the neighborhood with some learning downloaded from central location. But I agree with you that that's an issue now, but it will get better over time as more storage, more AI capability is actually localized within the car itself, and more learning as well. Now, as far as other type of area you're talking about, if you ask an AI to produce something, okay, and you don't know how it produced it, it could be good or bad, right? It could be that there's some fundamental flaw in the system, in the algorithm, in the neural network that created something that's detrimental to you, but you don't understand why. And so that's definitely an issue. And there's regulations just starting to come out in different jurisdictions, not very strong, that will mandate that you have to have an explainable result. Why is this a result? However, on the other hand, there's an interesting book called Machine, Platform, and Crowd, and they deal with creativity using AI. And many times the unexpected result that the AI created was actually a good thing, a fantastic thing that no humans would have ever thought to do.
Yeah.
And so things like there was a task that was provided to the AI to create a radiator cooling system. And so, the typical cooling system will be with fins, like in a car, right? With fins and radiator style. But this thing generated a very novel new structure using additive manufacturing as the process that no human would have thought of. So there's pros and cons, and there's also obviously an evolution of getting to having higher and higher intelligence, because you need that data in the local equipment or vehicle from a centralized location. So, I know it's not a perhaps a very satisfying answer, because I can't tell you how that's going to happen, but I trust that over time the technology will be there to put that, I guess, aggregated and summarized information needed from the massive data into the local equipment.
Okay, excellent. Thank you then.
Okay, next is Jean Doherty, and then Richard is on deck. So away you go, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you for a really interesting presentation, very timely. It certainly has been in the news in the last while, especially with regards to regulation of AI. And it scares the bejesus out of me. What you've described is something that is really, really good and could be very helpful to us, unless and until somebody gets their hands on it with malicious intent.
Right.
And how on earth can we control the system where it will not be taken over with malicious intent, or even one that's not malicious, but if the power grid goes down, as an example, if we have a major power failure and all of our systems collapse, how do we get around that? And how, if we have become so dependent on this kind of a system for how we do things, we are going to be in major trouble. So how do you recommend that we get around some of those things? Any ideas at all?
I wish I could recommend, but it comes back to my central beef with the technology governance in general. With our jurisdiction. I actually created a little bit of a video on this, and I'm probably just repeating myself. Is that the rate of technological advancement is really accelerating, right? It's not like before. You got the steam engine, for example, right? It came on board and people are using it, and at some point travel got really fast, relatively speaking, faster, and so you had to think about time zone differences, and therefore you standardize new time zones as a result, right? Or you have electrification. You have the famous fight between Tesla and what's his name? Anyway, one wanted AC and one wanted DC, right? And so there was a battle, and eventually it got solved. Took a bit of time, but even then, the time wasn't going. The technology wasn't going as fast, and we could eventually adapt, right? But now, as we've seen with ChatGPT, like it's zooming. So technology is going tick, 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 and governance is going tick, 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 right? Exactly. And so, and there are many advocates of AI that are, as I mentioned, saying slow down, and we need to accelerate governance and policy around it. And the only way to do that is it's really a political issue. It's not a technological issue. I mean, we can do put in the safeguards and the guardrails technologically, but there needs to be some sort of a mandate and a regulation and policy to do that. Otherwise, the people that are making that, even though they may be altruistic and want to do it, profit and return on investment takes precedence. And so, unless we as a society regulate that, it's not going to happen as fast as we want, and it may never happen.
Mm. That's very, very scary. I do have a sort of an add-on kind of quick question. Do you know, in terms of, North America, the Western democracies tend to be on the same page with respect to regulation, et cetera. Are you aware of similar sorts of debates in some other parts of the world that may not necessarily be on the same page as we are with respect to this? I'm thinking rogue nations and or some of the other power brokers who are trying to dominate things around the world. Do you know what's going on there, or have you any idea?
No, I haven't really, like outside of Europe, US, Japan, I haven't really looked at that. But you can be sure that they're not sitting on their hands and saying we're not going to use it. In fact, they are going to use it, and the rogue stations are going to use it. And so we need to prepare ourselves. Now, there are some jurisdictions like Europe, they're taking this a little more seriously. So, for example, the latest is I saw an article that they're going to mandate against use of AI in HR, in looking at people's past video and social media, et cetera, to determine their promotion, et cetera, or in hiring. So, they're ahead there. US is not, right? They're kind of lagging on that space. So China, for example, right? Well, they don't have the same kind of democratic regulation process as we do, and everything's top down. And in fact, they're taking full advantage of all of this technology to the extent that, they have, I use the word gazillions of cameras everywhere, monitoring everybody. They can identify anyone on the street, and their behavior is monitored. And if there's any antisocial behavior, they're penalized in some way. And kids in school, when they enter school through the doorway, they know who's going in, who's going out. They monitor the kids in class, their attitude, their facial expression, right? So that's being used. There's their good level of governance, but we're not using that, and hopefully we won't go down those draconian ways that some jurisdictions are going.
Thank you very much, Walter. As I said, a very, very timely presentation today. Thanks.
Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jean. Up now is Richard, and on deck is Paul Beckwith.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. And Walter, great talk. It's interesting. I just saw a webinar last Friday given by The Economist on the pros and cons of, where AI comes into the picture. But it's pretty clear from that webinar that we're way behind Europe in terms of the regulation of AI. But the question I was going to ask is, why is it that we have been so slow to adopt smart cities? There's been a lot of technology, and there's so many ways in which I'm sure many of us are aware of how it could be of advantage in terms of streamlining, cutting down energy consumption, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it? What's the holdup here?
That's a interesting question. It's an obvious question. I mean, I asked that myself. I can only give an opinion, not an answer that's really founded in research. But I just think that our politicians are less technologically informed, and there may be pressures from certain borders of economy to focus on traditional economic growth, construction, more concrete, more traditional things like that influence our regulations. And so I think that also coupled with probably our society is not as technologically aware as perhaps Europe is. Maybe we value slightly different things, and we probably value more the personality and culture type of things as opposed to science and technology. So I think it's a coupling of those, I would guess. That there isn't a political pressure from the bottom, but there's also a lack of, I'll call it technological intuition of our elected officials. They don't think in those terms, or if something technological comes along, they're kind of they glaze over, their eyes glaze over. They don't want to deal with that.
Okay, thank you.
An opinion, okay? That's
Well, I've done politics, and yeah, their eyes glaze over because they don't see how that's going to get them votes, because the electorate eyes glaze over, right?
Exactly.
It's all about the motivation. So next is Paul Beckwith, and on deck is David. So go, Paul.
Yeah, so my first question is, energy usage, because, you've given a lot of examples how AIoT can make processes more efficient on an energy basis. But the problem is the AIoT systems, there's no checks stopping their exponential growth in numbers, right? So eventually, I would think that they would actually cause more energy usage. I mean, if I think of cryptocurrency, right, it was touted as being green. Eventually the energy usage for crypto surpasses many, many different countries, in fact. So, I think the same thing is liable to happen with AIoT, and eventually we'll just run out of this energy to run the things. So that's the first question, I guess. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, there's a big difference between cryptocurrency or blockchain and that technology and IoT or AI. Definitely, the cryptocurrency blockchain, they're hogs, right? I mean, if you look at some of the numbers in terms of a single transaction, I did this calculation a few years ago. It's like you do a single transaction, it's equivalent to driving, 200 kilometers in a car to do that, right? And so definitely that is a problem, but it's not part of the AI IoT system. Yes, there's energy use, but the question is, what's the return on energy investment versus what you save and coming back? And right now, so far it's been positive. Nobody's going into this to come out negative in terms of money, but that also means energy. I wouldn't equate blockchain with this, though.
Okay. And the other thing is, if I go down to any major U.S. city, or even many Canadian cities, you can just drive into these areas or walk into these areas that are shanty towns, total poverty, as bad as third world or developing country poverty. And, people living in tents and, scrounging for food, having no money at all. So, a lot of these people, they've lost their jobs to robots or to digital technologies or, to jobs that don't exist anymore. So I think this problem is only going to get worse unless we have things like guaranteed minimum income, unless we, separate people from robots, because what's really important, is humans, right? The robot, we could, all the humans could vanish on this planet, and we could, if AI is developed enough, it can churn away. But what's the point of such a system, right? Like what are we trying to accomplish with AI? Are we trying to phase out human beings? We're getting rid of jobs for humans, jobs that humans have done for a long time. Self-driving cars, you can look at the number of people earning an income from driving cabs or buses or whatever. So I guess, we really need to, I think this is why some of these people want to put checks on AI. The other huge thing with digital technology is the person that owns the robots and the AI systems is the multi-billionaire, probably going to be the first trillionaire on the planet, right? So they have such power that is undreamed of,
right,
by kings or any other time in human history. And this is what digital technology does, because the people that control the levers at the top become filthy rich. We're seeing this already, and it's causing huge problems in society, leading to these shanty town camps and so on. There's some good science fiction movies like Elysium, where all of the rich go and live off orbiting the Earth, and the planet goes to waste, right? So I guess we really need to talk about these things. And do these things come up in will these things sort of come up in the conference that you're going, or is it all, it all sounds very utopian, I guess, the picture that you're painting. And I have a lot of concerns over that, because climate is devastating our planet. We're liable to pass 1.5 Celsius in a couple of years. Reports just came out on that in The Guardian today, actually.
So I hope I didn't paint a utopian picture, because that was not the intent. And I don't feel that way, because you remember my last couple of charts, it's very much highlighted those issues, although I didn't have time to go into the real detail because we're covering this one topic. So I agree with you that this is causing all kinds of societal issues, right? So first of all, I mentioned that there's this whole question of cyber autonomy, right? With all this connectedness, there's definitely benefits. And then after a while, it just becomes normalized. We got to be connected because there's so many benefits, societals. And so are we going to be allowed to be disconnected? So that's one issue. The other issue is more closer to what you're saying is that, yes, people will lose their agency. They will lose their ability to earn a living. They will be not just lose their meaning, but also, like, as you said, go into poverty. And as a result of this technological transformation, you're going to see people excluded from society. So there will be those that will own and manage and control this technology, whether it's AI or IoT or other digital technologies, and they'll be fine. And then there will be those that are totally displaced, which will not. So to me, the whole socioeconomic paradigm has to change. It's not just, it's like the same old way of doing things is not going to cut it. What was valued before is not what's valued not now. Before it was, if you own land, this is what you fought over, and then you fought over machinery and ability to produce and control. And now it's data, and with each of those things, you're seeing people fall off the grid, so to speak, not able to participate in this. And so I don't know if you know Yuval Harari. He's wrote a number of books around this, and so he points that out, right? And so it's really it's not a technological issue. It's not an issue of stopping what we're doing because I don't know how you do that. It's really a political issue, period.
All righty. Well, thank you, Paul. Next is David, and on deck is Mary Hagan. And that's going to be about it for time. Go, Mary. If she's still there. Yeah, she's still there. Mary, you have to put on your audio and video.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, my question on the last question, Walter, and by the way, you kindly have educated me a great deal today. So my question follows the social political questions I think Paul rightly put forward. And my question is, how does AI relate to nature-based solutions to the climate crisis?
Okay. I'm not sure what you mean exactly by nature-based, but I'm assuming it's things like planting trees and governing how we use our environment. Is that what you mean by this?
What I mean, yes, is taking nature, protecting it, and enhancing it. It doesn't have a dollar value. It doesn't, create data for the computer systems or anything like that. But it's becoming recognized as maybe a human equity, social, and environmental solution to our climate crisis, being extreme rainstorms and reducing flooding, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So my opinion again, right? It's not is
that's
that
okay.
I don't think we can achieve only nature-based solutions for sustainability because the scale is so large that we have the population to deal with, and nature-based solutions alone cannot have the impact, because the opposing side of population is kind of swamping that. And things like, trees, planting more trees. Yeah, okay, it's great to plant more trees, but I don't think that any amount of trees that we can plant can absorb all of the greenhouse gases that are currently in the air, let alone all the emissions that we are yet to do. So I think we do need technology to help with that scale, in addition to nature-based solutions.
Right. Well, thank you for the excellent question, and a sort of more on topic for the Club of Rome, where we're trying to, put technology together with the ecosystem. So I want to go back. There was a discussion from Paul, which basically was touching on the Jevons paradox that was sort of inferred in his questions. And that is the paradox where you make something more efficient, which then means everybody uses it more, and you have the unintended consequence of actually using more resources because it's easier to use. Like the simple example would be, we have LED lights, and now people leave their lights on all the time, and entire houses are covered in lights which are on 24/7. Normal human behavior. So once again, it's a behavior issue. It's not a technology issue, but the technology, we know by now that technology is always going to do this, right? So our eyes are open. This is not a surprise. So how do we do this so that we don't end up actually using more resources, energy, like Paul Beckwith mentioned? So it's the Jevons paradox.
Okay, so it's the first time I heard of that name, Jevons, but yeah, so I guess there is danger in that. The thing is that if it's a question of leaving 100-watt light bulbs on all the time, like before, right? And you're using X amount of energy, and you leave 7-watt LED lights on, you're still saving, right? Now, where there's actual increase in usage of something, you can still use technology to get around that. More technology. So, for example, you could be passively sensing somebody in a room, and if they're not there for 5 minutes, you turn off the lights, right? That's a technology that helps that particular issue. The question is it worth it, right? Is it worth turning off a 7-watt light bulb by introducing a $30-40 piece of equipment? I don't know. So there's technology to be used to address that. Is there another example that's maybe more detrimental that you could think of?
There's a lot of examples. I mean, you can Google it, but another one would be televisions. You had one expensive television, and it was like, wow, and everybody sat together and watched the TV. They become cheaper, better, flatter, bigger. Yeah. So there's like a TV in every room, and everybody's sitting alone. So not only did you use more things, behavior changes, a lot to do with technology isolating. There's a lot of isolation that has happened with technology, which, people thought would bring people together when it started. I remember when computers and internet started, it was definitely a sense that's going to bring us together. But in some ways it does. Like right now, having this Zoom call is bringing us together. So there's definitely the good side to it, but there's also a lot of isolation. Yes. And, it's hard to tell if there's more positive than negative. Like I can't know that, but it's a very mixed bag, and that's being polite.
You're right that there is consequences that are beyond technological or business consequences. So, for example, right, I was talking about the ambient intelligence, right, and so what that allows you to do, or what that promotes, is interaction with physical things, intelligent physical things, in place of interactions with humans. So, for example, You have these stores that Google is now, or is it Amazon? No, I think it's Google is now pushing out, where you walk in, you pick things up, you walk out, right? And there's no cash registers, there's nobody taking your money, you're not swiping any card. You have your cameras tracking you, your AI understand what things you're picking up off the shelf, and you just walk out and they bill you in the background. What human interaction do you have there? None, right? It's all with this ambient intelligence. And there's many other scenarios like that. So yes, technology, digitalization is changing our interactions with humans and perhaps changing the value that we place on other humans as well. So yes, these are all kinds of psychological and social issues that come with all of this stuff.
Thank you very much. I'm just gonna, we're basically done with the questions. We're gonna have an informal, non-recorded discussion group for those who want to stay. One last comment to ponder. There are groups of people who would take objection to you saying that the physical world is not intelligent. So I would, there's a lot of sort of indigenous knowledge perspective, sort of as showcased in the movie Avatar. And we're having a presentation by a local tree expert, Doris Kroger, she's from Merrickville, and talking about that the nature and animals, plants, they are intelligent. The problem is we're too stupid to hear and understand the discussion. You know, it's us, not the so-called stupid physical world. We're the stupid ones, right? And so to include that there is it's a different kind of intelligence.
Yes, that's right.
Perhaps it would be helpful to think of the AI and all of this also as another kind of intelligence. It's just a different form of intelligence. It's not more or less, it's just different. And how do we play ball with it? Just like how do we play ball with nature and with the trees and with the bees? Because they're smart, just in a completely different way that is difficult for us to hear and understand. And I think you're expanding our awareness of sort of multiple intelligences. So thank you very much for this, Walter. And I'm going to leave a final thank you to Jean before we stop the recording. So Jean, a final thank you from the Club of Rome, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Gord. And Walter, as chairman of the Canadian Association for the Club of Rome, it's my pleasure to have the opportunity to thank you. As I said earlier, a very timely presentation, and one that I think we're on the precipice of some major changes coming up, and you've really highlighted some of the things that we need to think about. So thank you very, very much for this wonderful presentation, and I hope everybody has a chance to think through this and feel that they're a little bit better informed now on some of the things that we are going to be facing. So
well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I always like talking about this, and thanks for having me on board.
Thank you. Thank you. And for those of you who are still present, I would strongly encourage you to go to our website, canadiancore.com. If you link on the Stay Informed section, you will get the link to this particular talk and all of the other videos and talks that we've had over the course of the last 3 years. It is a wonderful resource to be used and looked at any time. You can search the videos, you can search based on names, you can search based on topics, you can search on any number of things, and the videos we've got are a phenomenal resource for people to look at. And again, this would be a good one to look at again because of the fact that it's a novel talk about something which most of us don't have a lot of knowledge on it. Also on our website, you can see more information about our particular organization. If you're interested in becoming a member or wanting to know more about it, you can find that information on our website, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you wanted to get the sets for that as well. Anyway, with that, again, thank you very much. And this has been a wonderful presentation today.